Right. Hello, Europe. How are you doing? Okay. So I'm sorry I'm a little bit late. We've had some issues with the clocks go forward in the US yesterday, and the time zone stuff is just completely messed up. So we started the US one at 4:30. I've just come off it now, and now I'm jumping onto Europe. So this is exciting. We'll see who's going to show up, if anyone's going to show up. It's a bit of a mess, but there we go. Elena, I can see you are here. Would you just let me know that you can hear me? That would be really useful. And I will just check that YouTube is working as well. Is it all working? Alive. Is there anybody out there? Can you hear me? Yeah, great. Okay, thanks, Kevin. Really appreciate that. All right, so I think this is going to be a really small group. As I said, the clocks went forward in the US last night. In Europe, we're still in our original time zone, so my schedule is just completely out. So we've just done an hour with the US, I think, and now I'm going to do another hour here with people who I assume are going to be the majority Europe. So, hey, it's madness. And I haven't even got my makeup on today. I know I look terrible. I haven't had a chance. Right. So, oh, I've got the wrong branding on. I need to change the branding. I'm totally out of control of what's going on today. There we go. Correct branding and everything. All right. So let's get going. Hi, I'm Gigi, and I'm the Amazon interview whiz at Day One Careers. If you have been following me for some time, this is probably the first time that me wearing this jumper has started to make any sense, because I've been wearing it for a while now. And I have merged with, gosh, the most amazing ex-Amazonian, Yevgeny, and we have created a new business between the two of us. He's been doing something similar to me for quite some time, and we decided that if we wanted to reach more people, then we were better to work together than work against each other. So that's what we've done. We have combined into a new company, which is Day One Careers. All of the amazing stuff that I've worked for and on for you for a year and a half, and everything that I've done for my academy is not lost. It will all be part of the new business, and everything that you've come to expect of me in terms of the quality of my content and my support for you will absolutely stay. So have no fear. So we can just move forward with new branding. Right. So little backstory, if you don't know, I worked at Amazon. I was a senior leader and a bar raiser. The difference between kind of myself and other people that you'll find on the web is that as a bar raiser, you get a much broader experience of the Amazon interview process. If you are a recruiter, generally you only see the process based on the types of roles that you hire for. They hire for very specific roles. If you're a hiring manager, as you can imagine, you're probably only interviewing for your own roles or maybe for the teams around you. Bar raisers, we interview on every job family, tech, non-tech, multiple job families, multiple countries in the world, and you get a perspective on the process that just nobody else gets. And the truth is that it's hugely varied. There are so many different processes that are part of the master Amazon interview process. And I have that insight because I was a bar raiser. When I was a bar raiser at Amazon, I realized about 1.5 years ago, that there were some people who did so much better at interviews than other people. And I started just asking questions of my candidates and discovered that those that did better were actually getting expert Amazon interview preparation coaching. I did some research, and at the time, although I've done a lot of work to change this, it was incredibly expensive to get coaching. And if you didn't have a couple of $1,000s to drop on it, you weren't going to be able to get that quality support. So I created my YouTube channel. When I left Amazon, I decided I would try and create my own kind of academy where I created digital courses to make them incredibly affordable, but still allowed people to get access to my type and my level of expertise. And of course, now I've joined with Yevgeny as the next stage of our evolution, and we're working even harder to increase our reach so we can get things like this out to as many people as possible. So We have Day One Careers, which is our website and where you can sign up to our courses. We have this YouTube channel. We're also on Twitter. We're also on LinkedIn. And I just had my TikTok account suspended. TikTok kicked me off because they told me that I wasn't older than 13. What? Oh, I wish. And I even showed them my driver's license. And because my driver's license is about 15 years old, I must have had a rough 15 years because they rejected my driver's license and said that it wasn't good enough, wasn't good enough proof that I was me. I must have had a really rough 10 years if I don't look anything like my driver's license. So TikTok is gone. I'm going to have to create a whole new TikTok account. So that'll be interesting. Right. So on that note, as I said, I'm not sure how many people are going to show up today, but I'm here as always. I couldn't let you people down who did want to see me and we're here at this time. So I'm going to go through the list of questions here on the right, and I'm just going to answer them. And when we get to the bottom, I think we will close for the evening. So I don't reckon we'll run the full hour, but let's get going. Ask your questions and I will do my best to answer them. And then hopefully next week, when Europe's clocks go forward, we will all be in the same time sync together and we will have a more comprehensive session with our cousins over the pond. Right, let's go. Oh, hey, Elena. Right, so your question. Okay, you have a question regarding the second phone interview for a marketing role. What can you expect? Okay, so the first thing to bear in mind is that all teams do it differently. There is no one single approach to Amazon interviews anymore. When I first started at Amazon, 7 years ago now almost, things were pretty uniform and I could pretty much lay out exactly what your experience would be at interview. This is no longer the case. It's much more free reign for reasons why I won't go into right now anyway. So much, Elena, actually depends on your experience from your first round interview. I'm going to cough, excuse me. Can I hit the mute button before I choke all over you? So, Elena, sorry. If you have not yet had kind of behavioral type questions on your interviews, then I would say most certainly you can expect behavioral interviews in round 2. Even if you had behavioral interview questions in round 1, I would still be telling you to expect behavioral questions in round 2. I'm going to assume, Elena, that in your round 1, you had all of those. Tell me about yourself. Why Amazon? Walk me through your resume. Tell me about a project that you're really proud of recently, or things of that nature. So those will have been covered off in your first round. You may well get the whole why Amazon narrative again in your second round. My view is that those answers to those questions are sadly quite important in the early rounds. They become less important in the second round. So if you get those types of questions again repeated from your first interview, just say the same thing again. You don't have to come up with a new example. And then behavioral questions. The one thing, Elena, that I'm not sure about, because it depends on your role specifically in marketing and it depends on the team as to whether they'll do any type of functional testing in your second round interview. So there are some marketing roles that require a level of knowledge and specialty that others wouldn't require. So if you were applying for a PPC role in my team, I'm a marketer, I would be talking to you about and trying to understand your proficiency in understanding Google Ads, etc., etc. If you were applying for a creative role in my team doing OOH and ATL, I'd probably be trying to test you on your creative knowledge, and we might go through some kind of a test on creative and creative interpretation. So it is going to be a little bit specific towards the role that you are doing. The thing that my biggest piece of advice is speak to your recruiter. I probably should have said that at the beginning. The one person that's going to know exactly what you're facing into in your interviews is going to be your recruiter. So I've given you broad swathes, but I would suggest you try and raise them. I know sometimes it's difficult and they're not very responsive. They're very busy. But really, if you want the definitive answer, go ask your recruiter. I hope that helped. I am going to go on mute for a second and have a glass of water. Hang on a second. I do apologise. I've been talking constantly since 3 o'clock, so getting a little froggy in my throat. I hope I don't have COVID. My daughter's just got over COVID. Oh, now I'm worried. Okay, I'll have to do a lateral flow test when I leave. Okay, so let's move on then. I'll say hello to people as well as we go along. So, oh, Kevin, 9 days until your loop. Fingers crossed. And we've got Karem. Hello, Karem. Thank you for joining. Hope I pronounced your name right. Oh, wow. Hey, Teb. I just pulled this up because I love hearing these little stories. They make me happy. So you got a promo in Amazon using my videos. Yeah, congratulations. Promos are not easy things to get in Amazon. Just so that everyone else knows, I'll give you some context. To get a promotion in Amazon effectively, someone has to write a business case for you. To write a business case. Or if you are going for a promo in another role, you have to interview exactly the same way as an external candidate has to interview. So I'm assuming, Ted, that you were doing a process where you had to interview for a more senior role, and that's amazing. Congratulations. And your image looks really cool with my new theme for Day One Careers. So it's cool. Congrats. Onwards and upwards, Ted. Sky's the limit. All right, so what other questions do we have? Sudhir, hello Sudhir. Well, congratulations. You've cleared your phone screen and you're waiting for your loop. Give you some tips on how to be successful. I have an entire YouTube channel dedicated to this, Sudhir. So my tip is go watch my YouTube channel. There is a playlist that is Start Here. So start there. And then there's hours and hours of content. So please go check that out. I get at least 4 or 5 messages a day from people who tell me they have got hired just by using my YouTube channel. So go check it out. All right, moving on then. Okay. Okay, so I'm just bringing this question up here. Unfortunately, not because I can answer it, but actually to tell everybody there are some questions that I'm not going to be able to answer because they are so specific in their questions about such a specific job role that there's no way I'm going to be able to know that level of detail. There are thousands of job families in Amazon. There's no way I know the depth of detail on every single one of them, I'm afraid. So, Sadir, sorry if I've mispronounced that. I'm sorry, I can't answer your question. It's a level of specificity that unless I was the recruiter or the hiring manager, I would never know. Sorry. Okay. Oh, yes, I'm going to do this one. So, oh gosh, if I try and pronounce your name, I will probably murder it. So I'm not going to do that. Yeah, out of respect, I'm not going to try and pronounce your name. Please forgive me. Okay, so what special preparation should you have for military veteran applying for area manager? So I actually do already have a video on my YouTube channel that is specifically for military candidates because I have bar raised on a lot of military panels and there were 3 or 4 things that I felt were unique to military candidates that probably other people didn't experience. So I would just direct you straight to that YouTube video. I'm not going to go into detail here now because it's not going to be relevant for the vast majority of other people on this call, but please do go check out that video on my YouTube channel. It's a bit old. The production quality isn't quite where I would want it to be. The sound isn't great, but I promise you the content is bang on target. So please go check that out. Okay. Okay. Yeah, this is a really good question. So Juan, I can pronounce your name, thankfully. So you want advice on what you should do if you don't have an answer for a specific leadership principle question. You may have for the LP in general, but not for that specific question. I'm so glad you asked this because this is a really common use case and people usually deal with this horribly. So I'm pleased you asked it. This is my advice. If you are asked a question where you feel you have a similar example not quite right, but similar, what I suggest you do is you literally say this to your interviewer. Okay, so I don't feel I have an exact example that matches your question entirely, but I do have one that I think might fit. So can I just explain that to you very high level? And then you can tell me whether you think it works or not. And then explain your example to them really high level. This is the only time I ever advocate like a 10,000 feet type answer, where you literally tell them the example in 5 sentences, no more, and ask them, will that work? In some cases, the variance that you're seeing is immaterial to them. They'll still get the information that they're looking for and they'll let you go ahead. In some cases where the variance exists, do you know what? I've got headphones on. I don't need these. I'll tell you why I was wearing those in a second. Sometimes the variance is material and the example that you're about to describe to them is not going to hit the mark, in which case they'll say to you, no, I'm really sorry, that's not going to work. If they say it's not going to work, you should just ask them for another question. There is nothing worse than someone giving you an answer that actually doesn't answer the question. It's one of Amazon interviewers' worst bugbears. So you should just be honest and say, look, I'm really sorry. I don't think I have a good example for that question. Could I have another question, please? It is okay to ask for another question. You don't want to do it too many times in the interview process and in loop, because then it looks like you don't have a good range of high performance type examples. But certainly there's no harm with doing it once, maybe even twice through the process. Okay, I hope that helps. Right, the reason why I had headphones on was that when I was doing the US session that we started at 4:30 because their clocks have gone forward and in Europe we have not gone forward, was Evgeny, my new partner, had to helicopter in and do the session because I was working with a candidate. I had completely forgotten that the US clocks had gone forward. So at the last minute he joined and we were able to do the session together, which meant I needed to hear him because he was here in the room as well. Usually it's just me babbling to myself or to a whole bunch of kind of real people at the other end of the internet. So that's why I had headphones on and I forgot that I didn't need to listen to him in this session. So there we go. You're probably wondering, why has that crazy woman got headphones on? Right. Okay. So moving on to our next question then. Okay. Jason, I'm just reading it. Oh, okay, Jason. All right, I assume that's going to be followed with what shall I do next? So let me just quickly pull this up. So you finished a phone interview with 2 people from a project team, and you got a phone call to schedule the panel, okay? And then you had a call from technical recruiter about what to expect in panel, but it's been more than a week now and no follow-up. Okay, so I think, Jason, you're telling me that you have not yet got a date in the diary for your loop. You haven't mentioned yet that you do. So, Jason, just politely reach out to your recruiter and say, you know, you thoroughly enjoyed kind of talking to the recruiter and getting a sense of what to expect next in panel. Clearly, you want to make sure that you are available. So could you please get some sense of when your panel is going to be? Just a polite follow-up is absolutely fine. Okay. Yeah, hello, Karem. So should you expect functional questions? So why Amazon and tell me about yourself are not functional questions. They are what I would call introductory questions. Functional questions is where someone is trying to understand your functional expertise in your particular skill set. So to my point earlier, a functional question for a marketer might be understanding their how much they understand Google AdWords when it comes to PPC, or a functional question might be trying to understand the extent of knowledge of a finance person in terms of SQL queries. That's functional. Why Amazon, tell me about yourself. They're introductory questions, just for clarification. Doesn't change your question, but for clarification. Should you expect those types of introductory questions in the final loop? Almost certainly. But what I say to people is they aren't really, they should not be used as input data points to make the decision as to hire you or not. Your bar raiser should not allow anybody's subjective opinion on whether they did or did not like your why Amazon and your reasons for joining Amazon, or the way you chose to talk about yourself as inputs to determine whether you do or don't raise the bar on the leadership principles or the functional capabilities of the role. So when you get to Loop, they do exist, but they exist far more as just introductory questions, just to kind of warm up a little. It's always weird just like opening up a video call and throwing down straight into the interview. So everybody has some kind of a warm-up question. It could be, tell me about yourself. It could be, why did you apply for this role? Tell me about a recent project that you did that you just, you really enjoyed. But it's really just to get to know you. So my suggestion is, when you get to Loop, if you are asked any of those questions, try and keep it really short, like 1 minute type short, because that data cannot be used as evidence, and therefore every minute you spend on data that cannot be used as evidence is a minute that you're not spending on data that can be used as evidence. Okay, I hope that was helpful. Oh, we've got Tom from California. That is nice weather in California right now, isn't it? That's lovely. It's nice and sunny here today. Do you know what? Just as I said that, I realized today was plant watering day. I have plant watering day every Monday, and my plants are still outside and the sun is going down, and my poor baby plants are going to be freezing out there. So I'm going to have to run and bring them in as soon as I get off. How I got there from Tom in California, I have no idea, but I thought I'd share that with you because it was a thought that crossed my mind. Right, moving on. You get this from me. I had to be much more sensible on my call earlier with Yevgeny. Don't get me wrong, I love Yevgeny, but it's hard to be silly when someone else is on the other side. Right, okay. Valerie, what have we got here? Oh, yeah. Yeah, so this is an interesting question, Valerie. So, are you allowed? Well, I'll read the whole thing in total in case anyone's listening to it rather than watching it. Am I allowed, bracket, does it make any sense to request for feedback during Loop interviews? Right. Are you allowed? Well, there's no rules and no one's going to kick you out of the interview process if you do. So yes, you are allowed. Does it make sense to request for feedback during Loop interviews? So here's the thing. Amazon interviewers are trained that they are not supposed to provide feedback in the moment in the interview. Neither are they supposed to do it inadvertently. Oh, great example. The reason being that it sends signals to the candidate, which when your interviewer goes back and reflects on their notes, or when they go into a debrief with 4, 5, 6, 3, however many other Amazonians, may not actually be the final outcome and direction that the decision goes in. And therefore what happens is quite often candidates come out of their interviews skipping because they got amazing kind of either feedback or noises from their interviewer, and then they aren't hired and they're devastated because they thought they'd nailed it. So Amazon interviewers are trained to not do that. However, some do just that, oh, great example thing, and others do sometimes volunteer. I think if you go into your next interview, this is what you should be thinking about. So although they're trained not to do it, you can find people that do it organically, and you can tip people over by asking them. Now, if anybody ever asked me for feedback at the end of an interview, I would simply say, I have not even processed anything that you've said to me yet. All I've done is recorded the information. And that is true. It wasn't an excuse. I was very militant with myself to bring no judgment on candidates in the moment. I would never even consider whether I was inclined or not inclined until I had gone back to my desk or wherever I was going and gone back through my notes and done a thorough assessment. So my answer to those candidates would always be, no, I have no feedback for you because I haven't even considered how I feel about your data. Others will be different to me. So you might be able to push some interviewers to giving you that feedback. But all I would say for you, Valerie, is if they say no, don't be thrown off your game, and don't panic that it means that you've got a black mark against your name. It won't be the case, but just be aware that I would say, I would have said in the past the odds are not in your favor for actually getting that information, but quite honestly, the kind of training that is happening now in Amazon in terms of making great hiring decisions is all being done digitally. It used to be classroom-based training, and because of that, dare I say, I think the adherence to policies and the processes has become a little fudgy, let's say. So your odds, I would say now, are probably better in terms of actually getting feedback in the moment than it would have been back in my day, as my granny would say. I hope that was helpful. All right, moving on. Oh, Ralph, great question. Right, so Ralph, you'd like to know how many candidates are being chosen usually for the last on-site interview. Doesn't work that way, Ralph. The Amazon interview process is not a process of stacking candidates up and comparing them to each other and then passing the ones you want onto the next round and getting rid of the ones that you don't want. It's a conveyor belt. So effectively, it's real-time conveyor belt interviewing where your resume comes in and it's passed to the hiring manager. Whilst the hiring manager is thinking about whether they want to interview or not, the recruiter is reviewing new resumes. The hiring manager considers that they want to interview you, they pass you to round one. Whilst you're being interviewed at round one, the hiring manager is reviewing new resumes that the recruiter has just reviewed and passed over to them. If you pass round one, you'll get passed on to maybe loop or round two, depending on the process that your team has determined they want to do. Whilst you're at loop or at round two, the next person is going to be at round one. And the next person behind them on the conveyor belt is going to be having their resumes reviewed by the hiring manager, and the person behind them on the conveyor belt is going to be having their resume reviewed by the recruiter. They might even be going through the online assessment, blah, blah, blah. As I said, there are many different ways of going through this process. So it is not a let's stack up a whole bunch of people at resume review time and compare them to each other and get rid of some and pass the next on. Let's do an interview for all of these people and then get rid of some of them and pass the next lot on. It doesn't work like that. It is a conveyor belt. So the answer to your question is there is no answer to your question because the question doesn't work in the context of the Amazon process. Hope that helped. Moving on. I'm a bit worried. I do look so pale. Gosh, my makeup must make a lot of difference. Okay. Moving on then. Kevin. Hey, Kevin, what a cute profile picture. Oh, that's so nice. Makes me feel all warm and fuzzy. Okay, you're pivoting. So mid-level SDE engineer, right? You're concerned about your range of examples. You've got stronger examples from personal experiences in some of the LPs. How should you approach your preparation? All right. So, Kevin, if you're pivoting, that means that you had a different career before being a dev, in which case my strong suggestion is you find leadership principle examples from your previous career rather than from personal experiences. The reason being is that Amazon want to know that you can demonstrate these leadership principles in a work context. And if you can't pull out examples from your work history context of demonstrating those leadership principles, then they're going to start to wonder why you can demonstrate these things in your personal life, but you seem incapable of demonstrating them in your professional life. So if you're pivoting, I'm assuming you had a previous career, focus on getting examples from that previous career. I know, is it ideal? Probably not, but you're pivoting into dev. They know this, they've seen your resume, they've invited you anyway. So they're going to be prepared for the fact that you're going to need to use your previous career experience for a certain number of your examples. I hope that helps. Ooh, okay, yeah. Hey, Scott. What is a conversational phone interview with a new hiring manager? This is another job Amazon connected you with after a full loop as you were a strong fit, but not for the original role. Thank you. Yes, Scott. So this is super easy. This is called a green light meeting. So this is where you have made it all the way through loop and the panel have determined that you have all of the credentials to be a bar-raising Amazonian. They would be inclined to hire you for Amazon, but they don't feel that you're a right functional fit for the role. So what they've done is they found another role that they think you would be a good functional fit. You are effectively kind of pre-cleared from the bar raiser's point of view, and you're meeting the hiring manager to find out whether that hiring manager thinks that you're a functional fit for that role. If you are, you will get a job offer extended. You won't have to go through a whole new set of loops or anything like that. So it is a green light meeting. To give you some assurances, Scott, the majority of people that go to green light meetings end up getting an offer. I cannot tell you what that percentage is. I do not have a robust data set to be able to quote a percentage to you, but anecdotally from my candidates and my candidates' experiences, green light meetings generally end up in job offers. Oh, now it's very bright in my office. The sun has gone down behind me. Hang on a second. I look a bit washed out. Ooh. Right, there we go. That's a bit better. I was being blinded on this side. I hope that helps, Scott, and good luck. And well done for getting through the loop and getting to the point that you've got to. It's really amazing. Okay, moving on. Right, so just looking for other examples. Okay, Sharad, I'm not sure I understand this, so I'm going to read it out and hopefully my brain will function if I read it out loud. If the same exercise kind of answers two of the questions interviewer asked, but the functional description / explanation is different, can we go ahead from examples of the same? Excellent. Right, okay, yes, now I get what you're saying. So you're asking me, can you use the same example for two different questions in your interview? Right, so my advice is this. If you can avoid repeating an example, you should, because Amazon is looking for people who perform consistently at a high bar. And consistently means time and time again in different examples, in different scenarios, you perform at a high level. If you bring the same example to the table over and over, you effectively erode the range of examples that you are giving your interviewers to prove that you perform consistently at a high bar. I often use the analogy of going to court with witnesses. And let's say at court, you are trying to prove that you are entitled to something, don't know what it is. You would take along with you as many witnesses, as many different witnesses as you could to present that case to the judge and the jury, because the more people that present evidence on your behalf, the more compelling the case becomes. Imagine your examples are like your witnesses. The more you have, the more compelling the case becomes. If you keep bringing the same witness back to the box time and time again, it's not new compelling evidence. It's just the same evidence brought backwards. Now, that said, it isn't always possible to have completely new examples. You're going to be asked, you could easily get to like 25 questions through a full Amazon process. So it's not always possible to have brand new examples. And therefore, you have to go back to the same example. That's okay. It's not the end of the world. If you are going to do that, what you really need to do is make sure that you completely reshape that example towards a different leadership principle. So practice your examples and how you might tell them with a different leadership principle slant. What I always do and recommend what I always do for my interviewing, what I recommend to my candidates is for every example that you create, find two different ways of telling that story so that you focus on different leadership principles. I would, however, suggest that you don't do it in a single interview. If you do it across interviews, not so bad. If you're with one interviewer and you keep pulling on exactly the same example, it's less than ideal. Okay, I hope that helps. Oh, we have a good crowd. I thought that Europe would not show up, but obviously other people have got confused with the time zone thing as well. So woohoo, lots of people. Lovely to have you all here. All right. Oh, yes. Hey, Jen. Hey, Jen. I like it when people have their photos and I can see you, because then it feels like I'm actually talking to you, Jen. So, hey, Jen. Can you use notes during an Amazon Learning and Development interview? Okay, so this question is relevant for all interviews, not just Amazon Learning and Development. So can you use notes? Yes, there are no rules against using notes in an Amazon interview. Should you use notes? In my opinion, yes. The Amazon interview is not a memory test. It is trying to pull in evidence from your past by having a conversation with you. It is not meant to test your memory. Therefore, my recommendation is that yes, people should bring in light notes, particularly because I know you'll want to quote impact metrics, and it's very hard to remember impact metrics. 25 questions, like it's going to blow everyone's mind. But here's my advice. I suggest to people that they use paper notes, and they have very light notes with bullet points just here. And when you start your interview, you say to your interviewer, just to let you know, I am going to be referring to a very light set of notes that I have here, just bullet points. I promise you, I will not be reading from them, but I want to make sure that I stay on point and I don't misquote any numbers. And 99.9 reoccurring % of interviewers will be okay with that. Now, reason why I say paper and not screen, from my experience, if candidates have notes on screens, they tend to look at them far too much because it is a glowing blue light in your peripheral vision, and it often attracts candidates. If you are literally looking there and speaking like this, and I know you're reading notes and you're not engaging with me and we're not having a dialogue, you're narrating pre-prepared notes. So this is why I tell people do it on paper, because you won't be as tempted to keep looking like this at your notes and speaking like this, because very clearly your head is in the wrong place. That's it. Now, I have had one candidate feedback to me in the many thousands and thousands of people who have had this advice. One candidate feedback to me that they were told to put down their notes. They say they weren't just reading off them. I'm a little bit skeptical. So as long as you don't sit and literally read your notes and speak like this and blah, 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 I think you should be fine. Good luck, Jen. Thank you for joining. Okay, yeah, so Michelle, so what are they looking for in the work simulation online test? I have a YouTube video on this, which breaks it down for you, so go check that out. They're looking for people that demonstrate the right behaviors and make good choices in the simulation. So what would make a candidate fail the test? By making choices that they feel are suboptimal choices when it comes to decision making and leadership. So go check out that video and hopefully it will prepare you well. Okay. Okay, good question. Hey, Shay. Oh, from Israel. Shalom. You were invited to Amazon to do a home assignment for a software engineer intern, right? But you're not sure that but I don't sure that I prepare. Should I ask about the application? Okay, so I think, Shay, you're telling me that you don't think you're quite prepared for doing the test. My advice to people is, if you genuinely don't think you're ready, don't do it. It's never a good idea to do something knowingly unprepared. I think that's probably good life advice in general. So Shay, yes, if you're not ready and you don't think you can get ready in time, I would ask your recruiter for a postponement. I hope that helped. Hey, Jason. Again, so the technical recruiter asked what comp expectations seems fair based on market research. Would it be a reason they stopped the process? Only if your expectations were way out of whack. And only then, and only if they then had a conversation with you. So as a hiring manager, this would never hit the bar raiser as an issue to deal with. But certainly as a hiring manager, if I have had, which I have had, candidates who have shared a salary expectation that my recruiter and I knew were way beyond the bands of what we were offering, I've always sent my recruiter back to have the conversation with the candidate to explain that their expectations were not expectations that we could meet. We were happy to continue the process, but they would have to do so on the understanding that they would not meet those salary expectations. So, Jason, if no one has had that conversation with you, I think it's very unlikely that that would be the issue that is delaying your recruiters getting back to you with a loop date. I hope that helps. Okie dokie. So, oh, where are we for time? Oh, right. Okay. So, right. So I'm going to stop here ever so briefly and say, I obviously put a lot of work into the YouTube channel. I have to say we now because I keep forgetting that it's not just my channel anymore. I have to be much more conscious that Evgeny is here now. So we put a lot of effort into our YouTube channel for you. And please, I do ask something of you in return. In order for our content to surface above the other content that is nowhere near as good as our content, requires positive engagement signals from you, the user. Positive engagement signals are either you putting in comments or you giving it a like. So I'm going to ask you to take a few seconds now just to give this stream a little like. And in order to fill the time so that it's not entirely dull, I have not got a little video. Oh, I do. I have to. Oh, no. I'm not going to play my video because it's on my other branding and I have to do all sorts of things. So 2 seconds, please. I'm going to count to 10. And whilst I count to 10, I might sing a song. Please just go and give this a little bit of a like. And then when this finishes, I have to remember after I do my COVID test and I bring in my plants, that I need to put the videos on this branding. So please go like it. Please like the stream, please like the stream, like the stream, you 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 like the stream, like the stream, yeah, like the stream, yeah, like the stream. Okay, I'm losing viewers now. Don't go. I'll stop singing, I promise. All right, okay, done. Thank you if you liked it. If you didn't after that song, I don't blame you. All right, so moving on then, back to the comments. It's a good thing that I have absolutely no shame whatsoever. No ego, no shame. Very lucky. Moving on then. Okay, Joy. So how many behavioral questions are asked at each stage of the loop? Joy, it depends completely on the team that you are interviewing for, and it depends on how long your examples are. So some teams will have interviews that are a mix of functional and behavioral questions. Some teams will have just behavioral questions. Some teams won't even get to the behavioral questions when they're in the early rounds, and they'll only cover the introductory questions and walk you through your resume type stuff. And then some interviewers will be aiming for 5 or 6 questions. Other interviewers will be aiming for 2 questions. And you may have 15 minutes, well, 15 minutes is too long an answer, but you may have an answer that runs like 8 minutes long, or you may have an answer that runs 3 minutes long. If your answers run 3 minutes, then they're going to have a lot more time to ask you more questions. If your answer runs 8 minutes, then they're going to have a lot less time to ask you questions. So unfortunately, there is no single answer for this. Best practice that I was taught was to aim for a minimum of 3 questions. If I was interviewing more junior people, their examples would be less complex and therefore I would get through more questions. So for L4s and 5s, I would easily hit 5, 6 questions, sometimes even 7. For L6s, I would really only hit 3 or 4 questions, maybe 5 if they were particularly simple. And then kind of L7s and above, I would only be aiming for 3. But that was me. That was how I planned interviews. Other people would just do things differently. So unfortunately, Joy, as with most things Amazon these days, there is no single answer. Okay, moving on then. Okay. Oh, there's lots more questions. All right. Okay, so I'm not going to make my way through all of these questions in the next 11 minutes. So very briefly, if you really need me to answer your question and you don't want me to go without answering your question, you can use the super sticker function. Super chat function will promote your question to me. You have to make a little donation, but I promise you I will put that donation towards Ukraine and supporting the humanitarian causes in Ukraine. We're about to make a massive donation, massive for us. Should be about $20,000 that we're going to be donating to Ukraine. We've been working very hard this week at Day One Careers, which I know is a big number. But if you want to do that, please just put your super chat there and your money will be going to Ukraine, not to feed my children or Evgeny's. All right, so let's just see what else I can find. Okay, that's just a quick one. You've applied for 2 roles, interview scheduled for both of them. In case if I do not get selected in one of the role, will it impact the other? No, if they're independent roles, different teams, different locations, then no, it won't impact the other one. If you get selected for both roles, will you get a chance to select a region where you'd like to join, say Luxembourg or Frankfurt? Probably, if you're offered both roles, they will ask you which one you want to take. Sometimes what they'll do, imagine you've got different interviews, right? You've got different interviews scheduled. So if you're in the early rounds, if you make it through to loop for those 2 roles, it's possible that what they'll do is combine the roles together and do a split loop. That only happens if the teams are quite closely connected teams. What they'll do is they will bring you into one single loop. They will have representatives from the 2 different teams on the panel. They will collectively decide if you are raising the bar. Then they will, if you are, then they'll decide whether they both think you're a good fit for their role or whether one of them thinks that you're a better fit for their role than the other, etc. If they both think that you're a fit for their role, they will let you make the choice. If one team feels that you're not a good fit for their role and the other one does, then they'll just offer you that one. If they're independent, then they're independent. Okay. Yeah, Mohammed, hello. So I've just noticed, Mohammed, that you hopped over from the call at 4:30 and we didn't get to answer your question there and you brought it here. And unfortunately, it's too vague a question. Any insight on how to better handle the business case analysis cases during the loop interview? I don't even know how to answer that, to be honest with you, Mohammed, because I don't know what better means. Or indeed, even if we took out the word better and you just said handle the business case analysis, I still couldn't answer it. Ultimately, it's about its analysis, right? So you're going to have to pay a lot of attention to the data points and put those bits of data together in order to make your recommendation. So be thorough and don't make silly mistakes and make sure that you understand the definitions of the data points and the metrics that you're given in the business case. So I'm sorry, that's a little bit high level, but that's about the best I can offer you given the context of the question. Okay, moving on. I'm going to start jumping a little here, people, because I'm just so conscious of time and I want to make sure that people at the end get a chance as well. Okay, moving on. Thank you, Good Joe. Is that how we do it? So good. I'm glad you've had your interviews and I'm very, very pleased my input has helped you. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. So how do I say that? Blablature. I do like the image though. That's hilarious. So actually someone asked this question in the earlier session, the on-site offer ratio of Amazon. So it's hugely varied, massively varied, and it varies by business unit and it varies by job family. Broadly speaking, based on my experience, my understanding of my colleagues and recruiters, it ranges somewhere between 30 and 50% on average. But some roles have a much higher conversion rate. The kind of the entry cookie cutter type roles, brand manager type roles tend to have a much higher conversion rate. They can easily push kind of 60, 70% conversion rate. More specialist roles at higher levels, for example, quite senior economists, they would have a much lower conversion rate because they're looking for something really super specific, and raising the bar at an L7 is much harder than raising the bar at an L5/L4. So range between 30 and 50%, but in reality, if you were to unpick that average, you would see an enormous deviation on the curve. Helps but doesn't help, I know, I'm sorry. Okay, moving on then. What else do we have? Tejas, hello. So if you haven't heard back from the recruiter after 3 days of interviewing with Amazon follow-up, well, it depends on what stage you're at. In the early rounds, so round 1 and round 2, the SLA is 2 working days. If the If you're at Loop, the SLA is 5 working days. In that you've given me 3 days rather than working days, bearing in mind we're Monday now, that would have been Saturday and Sunday, which don't count. So really, if you had your interview on Friday, you haven't even had 1 day yet. So early rounds, if I were you, I would wait until about 5 days after it. Like, the SLA is being met so rarely these days, most people do not get it in the 2 days. So if you're at the early rounds, phone screens, round 1, round 2, I would wait until you've had 5 working days without hearing anything. If you're Loop, I would say you could probably easily wait 10 working days without going back to them. But when you go back to them, just be polite, super keen to hear what the outcome is, still really keen on the role type thing. Okay, hope that helps. Moving on then. All right. So, yes. How can you use LinkedIn effectively to get interviews? Is it possible to get interviewed directly from a LinkedIn connection? Okay, how can we optimize our search from LinkedIn? All right, so there are a couple of things to cover off here when it comes to LinkedIn. So the first thing to do is make sure your actual LinkedIn profile is optimized. So make sure that you have all of your job history in there. You're very clear on what your responsibilities were. You put some data in there about your achievements, if you can, as if it doesn't compromise confidentiality for your business. That your about section clearly details the type of work that you do and have the right keywords in them for the types of roles that you want someone to consider you for. That will optimize you for search when sources are out there looking for people to ask and invite to interview. When it comes to then making connections, then you want to connect with recruiters who are hiring in your space. So if you see somebody who puts a job posting up that is in your space, connect with them, because they will put more job postings up, even if it isn't actually the exact role or the type of level that you want to apply for. You can try reaching out and connecting with kind of just Amazonians. That is a long burn, right? If you've identified an Amazonian with a job title that really interests you and you think that you'll want to work in that space, then you have to be ready to commit to a long-term network building relationship with them. And Amazonians don't have a lot of spare time. Coffee chats and things like that, I'm afraid, don't often bear fruit with Amazonians because they just don't have a lot of time on their hands. So by all means, connect with them. If they're people that post regularly, then comment on their posts, etc. There are plenty of people I know that have managed to network with recruiters, then get kind of pointed towards appropriate roles inside Amazon and then make their application. I don't know a lot of people who have had success with building networks with Amazonians and finding themselves roles directly. It might be a long burn and they've got there somewhat indirectly, but I know there's a huge amount of new noise on LinkedIn about how important networking is, blah, 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 blah. I would still say that the vast majority of people that get hired at Amazon do so because they either applied directly or they were connected to someone who referred them into the organization and then they applied directly. I'm a bit of a cynic when it comes to that narrative about how important networking is. So I'd love to tell you I could give you a unbiased opinion, but I don't believe the hype. Sorry. At least I'm honest. All right, moving on then. This is interesting. Crypto Casanova. Oh, cool. Right, you applied for a product manager tech for AWS. You went through a prep call with the recruiter. You don't have a strong technical background. How should you prepare given your lack of technical expertise? That's a difficult one because if you were going for kind of a technical program manager rather than product manager, I would be telling you to kind of brush up on kind of systems design type stuff, because you might find yourself facing system design questions. I don't think technical product managers face those types of questions, but I think it's hard to sell yourself as a technical product manager without technical experience. But you've obviously been through, you went through a prep call with the recruiter. I would take some strong guidance from your recruiter, because if you don't have a lot of technical experience and what you're having to do is effectively super SWOT in order to be prepared for interview, you need to know exactly where to focus for that particular team. Different teams will obviously be focused on different types of tech, depending on what they're building. So my best advice to you, actually, Cryptic Casanova, is go back to your recruiter and ask your recruiter this question. They have the same goal as you have, which is to get you hired. So you should just ask. Don't be worried that if you reveal your hand, that it will undermine you. They will want to give you the right guidance. So go back to them, I think, is the best shout that I can give you. Okay, moving on then. Oh, and we are over time, so I'm just going to answer one more question. Okay. Right. Yeah. Hey, Joy. Yeah. So you were once asked, tell me something you want me to know that is not in your CV. What's the best way to approach this? So I would tend to, if someone asked me this question, I would definitely, and maybe not surprisingly, focus on something that is still professional. You know, you don't want to tell, I don't think you necessarily want to tell anybody that you, I don't know, you love cooking, because who cares if you love cooking from a professional standpoint? So I think you just want to, I mean, it's I'm not sure it's a question that will come up necessarily. It's just another one of those random warm-up questions that different people are choosing different ones, because the tell me about yourself one is so overdone and boring. And that's why they came up with that one. So statistically speaking, I think the odds of you getting this question again are relatively remote. But if you want to be prepared for it, just think about something that is related to your professional life that you haven't necessarily put into your resume. So for example, I read books on behavioral science and behavioral design. There's nothing in my resume about behavioral science or behavioral design, but I read books and I read blogs because I just find it interesting and it's connected to my skill set as a marketer. So just remember, if there's books that you read, or if there's things that particularly interest you, or if there are things you wish that you could do that you haven't yet done, I don't know, they're in a professional context, that would be the type of thing. But Joy, don't overanalyze this one. No one is using that as evidence as to whether to hire you or not at Amazon. They were just trying to have a chat and be friendly, broadly speaking. All right, so on that note, and you know what? I forgot to get my little ticker tape going. Gosh, there we go. There's my little ticker tape. I put that on today for Day One Careers and forgot to turn it on for this. Right, so what I'm now going to do is, please head to I never get this right. Please head to Day One Careers, day1.careers/Amazon-interview-whiz. It's not very pithy, is it? To get yourself our free Customer Obsession Taster course. It will tell you the 4 different facets of customer obsession. There are 4 different facets to customer obsession. It's the most complicated leadership principle. It will tell you pretty much what they're looking for in the interview process, in your customer obsession interview. It's literally like a roadmap to what they're looking for in your answers. So seriously, pay close attention. And there is a mock interview of me interviewing me, so you can see how it all comes together in the actual interview. Please go and get it. It's completely free. It's not that rubbishy type free content that tells you something at like 10,000 feet but doesn't actually tell you anything that's useful. It is content that I would usually charge people $15 for. We would usually charge people $15 for. Giving it to you absolutely free because we want you to love it. We want you to try it. We want you to love it. And we want to show you the quality of the product that we offer. If you don't buy anything else, that's fine. I'll be sad. but my children will be sad, my dog will be sad, but at least I know that if I've given you something for free, that it is absolutely usable and applicable, because pretty much all of you, if you make it all the way through the process, will at some point be asked about customer sessions. So please follow the link, go grab it. If you haven't got this link, the link is in all of my details, descriptions on all of my videos. You can get it pretty much everywhere. Just go grab it. Please use it. Please enjoy it. I hope you get benefit from it. Thank you so much for showing up today. I had no idea whether anyone would appear because of my ridiculous mess up with the time zones. So next week, we'll all be in the same time zone, daylight saving type thing. So please do make it back next week. I would love to see you. If I didn't get to answer your question, and it's really important, you can always just stick it as a question on any of the videos on YouTube, and I will try and answer it. We will try and answer it. We'll try. I hope he doesn't see this. He won't. We will try and answer it and get back to you as soon as we can. So until then, good luck if you have interviews coming up. Thank you so much for joining. Please stay safe, and I am now going to go and take a lateral flow test. Be safe. Bye-bye, everyone.